What up, boys? Welcome to week 2 of the League of Legends and Jesse. We don't want to exclude our brother. Personally, I had my worst week of my fantasy football career in week 1, going 0-3 and not doing worth a diddly on FanDuel. But we're not here to complain. We're here to bring it like we do every single week. Free agents on Wednesday, it went kind of nuts. And again, those of you who aren't aware, a couple of you, I told you this week, if you go to the free agent auction report, you can see a lot of things. You can see who was added. And not only you can see the price, but you can see who else bid on those players. So there were some questions, can I help out with trading? Obviously, trading is what makes fantasy football fun. Take a look at how other guys who bid on Philip Lindsay, and if that's a move you want to make, say, hey, Danny, I know that you were interested. You bid $41. It's kind of one thing you can do with free agents, especially early in the year, because some of these guys are difference makers. But be careful when you're out, you're out. Adam Foster does not loan money in the form of free agency. So we're just going to go ahead and get into a preview for this week. One thing I do want to mention is here on my desk I have some notes. I did some prep work here trying to streamline this, make it more informational and less rumbling and rambling. But I do have a check here from the Tesler, Adler, and Whalen law firm, and I tell you what, it's generous. It's more than we have gotten in the past, and it's a little speechless and makes me emotional that they love us and they care about our little show that much. But here we go. We're going to jump into this. We're just going to go, in whatever order I happen to click here. I'll just check them off as we go through. First up, we have a couple friends, couple rivals. We have the Clash of Gentlemen. That's right. That is the name of this matchup this week. It is Nathan McClung and Blake Lively against the Jesse Shawver. Just kind of break this down. The one note I made was Jesse's got some tough matchups this week, and he has Matt Stafford playing on the road. I'm a Matt Stafford believer. I don't think San Francisco is very good on defense, but that's kind of a weird place to play. It's a tough trip all the way across the country. And then David Johnson banged up out of nowhere. The Rams have a pretty good defense, so maybe that hurts his ceiling a little bit. Jarvis Landry, I think, is a guy who's going to get peppered with targets. I think he had 16 last week. Certainly, you love that matchup in a dome at New Orleans. That's a great spot to be. The question with Landry is he going to score touchdowns? He's a guy I would love to have on my team. Either way, but if he's going to ever be a legitimate top 10 stud receiver, he's got to score touchdowns. And I know he had some last year, but some of them were a little bit fluky. I know he had a 3-touchdown game a couple years ago. I think he was on Jason's team at the time. He's just not a guy who, if he can get to that 10-touchdown number, even 8-touchdown number, he's a guy who's really going to be big for Jesse. And then, Rex Burkhead at Jacksonville. Jesse's just got some tougher matchups. That said, my team's just not very good right now. I think the top half of our lineups are fairly similar. And then, Demaryius Thomas is a guy who gets you touchdowns. And certainly you like him at home. You like the upgraded quarterback. So this will be an interesting clash here. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do at flex, but, this will be a really close match. I think for me, I need Cam to have a pretty good game. Traditionally, he does very well against Atlanta. So we'll see what happens here. Best of luck, Jesse. No hard feelings either way here. The Butt Buddies. Simply simple victory. This is the small man syndrome showdown. 3 young men, maybe 5'5", but I tell you what, they bring the heart and soul into the fantasy world, specifically Team Todd Gurley. And he is Tyler's main weapon. Tyler is unleashing Todd Gurley, as well as Jared Cook, who had about $180 of yards. He had more than Tyler's weight in yardage last week. But I do not see that continuing there at Denver. I see A.J. Green plays tonight on Thursday Night Football against that tough Baltimore defense in general, but they are at home, so that could help a little bit there. Lamar Miller, certainly a worthwhile option there. Todd Gurley, Big Ben at home. You see the questionable tag there. I haven't read anything that says he's not going to play. But Large Benjamin at home is a spot you really like. You look at Danny's team and you notice of his 3 receivers, one is Juju Smith-Schuster. And, personally, I don't know that Juju's ever going to be a touchdown guy. So I think assuming Tyler can root for a 2-touchdown Antonio Brown game, which I think is probably coming here at home against Kansas City, that could be good. That's a good spot for Large Benjamin as well as Todd Gurley. See what other notes I had on this matchup here. I really, really like Danny's receivers. As I said last week, and that was before Mike Evans looked like Mike Evans again. I do think he has the best receivers in this league, considering he plays three of them. I just think they offer a floor and they offer an amazing upside. So just think there are going to be a lot of weeks where Danny gets 50 plus is a reasonable expectation out of those three receivers. He's going to have one of them go for 25 more often than not. So really like that. And then, we saw the workload in Denver's backfield was a little interesting last week, but Royce Freeman's going to be a big part of that team. Anytime they're at home, I love both of those running backs for the foreseeable future. And Jordan Howard's just going to get the ball. I think he only had 15 carries last week. It was a kind of a weird game there against Green Bay. And then Jordan Reed, and this is a note that I put down as well. This is an ideal fit for Jordan Reed. Finally, with a quarterback who throws even more to the tight end there. I like Danny's team a lot. I don't know about Jimmy Garoppolo, but we'll kind of see. That said, it's a little bit of an upset to pick Danny. I kind of talked about Ty's team earlier. The real question I have is who is Adrian Peterson going to be? And that's something that Tyler is going to need to figure out, not just for trade purposes, but for his own team. Adrian Peterson, we know what he can be. My concern would be Chris Thompson is not going anywhere in the passing game. Although I think last week AP did have 70 receiving yards, not really known as a receiving back. But again, you have a quarterback who likes to throw the running back. It's very beneficial, very, very beneficial for that floor. Tough one. I'm going to take Danny in a close one. Another one that I think is very close there. Here we have Magic Mike PPV order. Mark is referring to, I believe, 3 years ago when Patrick allegedly ordered Magic Mike 2 on Trampus's HBO television service. We don't know who did it, but we can only assume, based on this accusation, that it was indeed Patrick Murphy. Nathan sucks D's nuts. This is the matchup of the wannabe frat boys. Pretty proud of that one, and I think it's very accurate, we might add. Breaking down these teams, see what my notes had here. Apologize here. Just a moment. We'll get you going. I think this is an OBJ smash spot. I was very, very surprised in what OBJ did last week against Jalen Ramsey and that Jags secondary. And I was also very surprised how often Eli targeted him. 18, I think. And I just think this spot here at Dallas, this just has the look to me of one of those OBJ games where he's like, hey, look, watch what I can do. Hold my beer. And just goes bananas. I also think that Patrick needs that. And then you also look at the top of his team there with Aaron Rodgers. I know he's at home, but that Minnesota team's no joke. So it'll be interesting from Mark as well with Adam Thielen and anyone who has lots of players, right? Lots of fantasy relevant players here in this Green Bay Minnesota game. Game flow is very, very important, right? I mean, if you have the quarterback, you don't want to get out ahead too far unless it's Aaron Rodgers because he's selfish and he will not hand the ball off. Not at the goal line anyway. And that's something I talked about last week. Look, Aaron Rodgers is great guy. But, he doesn't hand the ball off very often. And again, they're coming from behind last weekend, but it's just interesting to see the running back work even when they're ahead. It's kind of curious to me. So we'll see what happens there in that Minnesota Green Bay game. I think it'll be pretty important for a lot of us who have players in that matchup. That said, I do like Magic Mike pay-per-view order this week. I like that because I like Saquon Barkley in this spot. Again, same game at Dallas. I think that New York actually is as bad as they can look. I think they get out in this game at Dallas. I think they get out quick, and whether that's Barkley breaking one or Beckham, I just have this feeling that they're going to kind of play one of those games where it's like, where did this Eli come from? I like Alex Collins to destroy Cincinnati tonight. I just I don't know. It's just anytime you have a good defense and you have that running back, it's a good pairing. So and Tyrod Taylor at New Orleans, you can't game script Tyrod Taylor out of a game. He went 15 for 40 last week and put up 25 fantasy points. So, bad quarterback play perhaps, but the dude, he's very, very solid when it comes to fantasy football. I need to speed up here just a little bit, and this is not the time we're going to do it because here we have Fogel, a.k.a. McLovin, searching for that fake ID against the bankroll. Mr. Luckbox, Adam Foster against pass first offense. And here's what we'll do. I need to pause. Hey, we're back. Sorry for that brief interruption. I had a knock at the door. Here's my lunch. Don't mess with me on my lunch, people. I think the quarterback situation is kind of a wash here, believe it or not. A couple pretty good ones. And Tom Brady at Jacksonville. I just struggle to find this is a high-scoring game. and you have Andrew Luck at Washington. Prefer the spot a little bit, but ball security with Tom Brady, I like maybe a little more. Both quarterbacks on the road. So as I said, I think that's kind of a wash. Running back advantage is certainly Adams there with Devonta Freeman and Kareem Hunt, both in solid matchups. Again, the Carolina Atlanta games can always kind of become shootouts, which is odd because a lot of times Carolina's had a pretty good defense. But additionally, with that though, I do have one question, and I just wrote down who is Kareem Hunt, and I've owned Kareem Hunt in another league, and he's very inconsistent. So as good as he can look on paper, even in a really good matchup, the team went off last week. It's just, he's not somebody who consistently performs, and that's one thing that kind of takes him out of that elite range. But I do think that with without Gronk on the bottom part of Adams' lineup, you look at Michael's team, and you have Julio Jones, Tyreek Hill, who just went bananas in that first quarter. Jimmy Graham, Allen Robinson. I do think that there is a somewhat of a substantial advantage, although Michael Thomas, he's going to do some crazy big things this year, I think. I do think that the bottom half of Michael's roster has a little bit of an advantage there. That said, the kicker and the thing that I like most maybe as a differentiator here is when in doubt, I see the Ravens even going to Cincinnati tonight. You just got the red squirt gun there and Andy Dalton. And I think that could be an issue. So I think both of these teams are pretty solidly built. I think both of these teams right now are looking like playoff teams. But right now with the way Adams' team is shaping up and Emmanuel Sanders getting a certainly big quarterback bump, I like him a little bit here, Michael. I apologize for that. But again, remember, you were the lock of the week last week incorrectly. So, you're going to need to get hot here. By the way, I saw your complaints about your schedule. Here we have Cal Drago versus Pretty Boy Hat Backwards and Adam Brandt. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to simply say that I think one of these teams will win. That's what I think will win. I think Matt Ryan's projection might be a little high, but again, it's one of those games. I think right now Joey's team is relying on Antonio Brown and T.Y. Hilton a significant amount. So I do want to make sure I can cover this game, try to get to some questions if I can. But last and certainly not least, we have Mick Howler versus Bilbo Baggins. And, this is Lollipop Guild on Pimpin' Ain't Breezy. This is Fraternity Brother on Fraternity Brother. And this is criminal what's about to happen here, because let me break this down for you. I'm going to go player by player. I'm going to go Kirk Cousins on the road. That's a dud. I'm going to go Joe Mixon at home. But yeah, he went off, but he's against Baltimore. Alvin Kamara, I'm not going to root for it. I just see a knee injury coming soon. They got to give the ball to somebody else. Do not make that guy get hurt. I hope Alvin Kamara stays healthy. Golden Tate, Cooper Kupp, 2 5'4" receivers there. One of whom will see some Patrick Peterson. The other will see no defense, more than likely at San Francisco. Zach Ertz needs to pick it up a little bit here because he was non-existent last week. But then I see James Conner, and I do like James Conner. Let me look at the other side. We got Drew Brees. We have Melvin Gordon. We have LaShawn McCoy. We got guys getting the footy ballies. Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams, Trey Burton, whatever, Fred Moe. Pretty obvious spot for the lock of the week here. Going down Jason's team again, I see tough matchup, no receiver, but then I see James Conner. And I see a young man who has handcuffed and a huge weapon. And this is my lock of the week. I am taking the Lollipop Guild and a stunner Lollipop Guild lock of the week upset over Pimpin' Ain't Breezy. Had some questions I'll address here. I have 58 seconds. Adam wants a girls golf sectional preview. I like where my girls are at right now, and I will leave it at that. I think that we need to beat one of the two teams with whom we're paired and hope that everybody keeps score accurately. Couple questions about trading, and I kind of already touched on one. The biggest thing with trades for me is you have to ask yourself before you even propose it is would I do this if I were the other team, or would I consider it? Okay? And as valuable as a 2-for-1 trade may seem to you, if that other person cannot start both of those players, okay, if you don't give a starter and a flex option, there's no reason to do that trade. So, I'm one who I love to talk trade. I talk trade all the time, rarely get them done. Kerry Kittles went for $24. My goodness, that's a lot. That's what I do think. A lot of sleepers out there. I'm not one of them. Tell you what, I probably won't even watch the game tonight. Deuces, guys.